our fifth installment of Hispanic Heritage Month here at the Chelsea campus. We're delighted to have you here today. The fifth and last installment, we have a panel discussion with members of the community that will tell you about contemporary issues facing Latino communities today. But first, I'd like to introduce you to our Associate Provost, Clea Andriadis.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
On behalf of the president of Bunker Hill Community College, I'd like to welcome you to today's panel discussion, which is Escucha, Contemporary Issues Facing Latino Communities. And obviously today we'll be focusing on Chelsea. We have a distinguished panel with us today that I'd like to introduce you to. Luis Prado is the Director of Health and Human Services Department for the City of Chelsea. Thank you. Dan Cortez is the Community Engagement Specialist for the Chelsea Police Department. Alberto Calvo is the owner of Compare Enterprises, which is next door. Alba Rivas is a partner and owner of Chelsea Discount Stores and a former Bunker Hill Community College student. And Rich Kuthi is the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce of Chelsea. So join me in welcoming our panel. And I will be turning the podium over to Leah Escalera, who will get us started.
Good morning, everyone. I want to make sure that our students who are in the office have plenty of in the office. I get distracted when the paparazzi is here. I want to make sure that our students in the room have a chance to address our panelists and ask any questions that you have, especially as you've been participating in the Hispanic Heritage activities over the last month. But I thought it would be a good idea to begin by giving you a little background information about each of our panelists and asking them to identify one initiative that they are working in either in their business or in their work in the community that's facing one of the issues that they think is a real challenge to Chelsea residents, and to talk to you a little bit about what they are doing from either their business or their community organization perspectives to address that issue. So Alberto, if you would begin for us. I put him right on the spot.
I started here. I sat here because I thought you would start in the middle.
Sorry.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Alberto Calvo. Oh, the mic. Okay.
Una canción, por favor.
My name is Alberto Calvo, and I'm the owner, one of the owners. My wife is the real boss of the store that is next door, Compare Supermercado Compare, or Compare Supermarket. And the question was, what initiative? What initiative were? Well, as you, we're a Latino-owned, operated, managed, and catering to the Latino communities here in Chelsea, and we have another store in Lynn. And my wife was the one that started the business, along with two other partners who one has passed away, the other one is very ill, but we're the active component. I'm just a little bit background on myself. I'm originally from Cuba, Cubano, and we've been living here 50 years. I'm an immigrant, an older immigrant. I'm an engineer by profession. In other words, I finished my career here in engineering, went to Northeastern and then MIT, then started working in engineering. And after 30 years, I retired and then joined the family business in a full-time basis. So having said that, when I started the business, I started working on the business. And given my background, I thought that we needed to become the business, formalize a little bit the processes, procedures, and so forth. So the first thing I did was an employee handbook in terms of policies, procedures, et cetera. And that basically, because of my background, I thought if we're going to grow, which we are, we have to formalize that a little bit. So I did that. The other initiative I took was English as a second language. Our employees, we have 100+ employees, the 2 stores. The latest census was from 12 nationalities. You name it, we have it. Okay? Colombia, Puerto Rico, República Dominicana, El Salvador, Honduras, and so forth. So when I saw that, and I saw that the basic need was English, after all, we're in America. We have to learn English. I sought a grant from Commonwealth Corporation, which is an arm of the government that provides funding for doing training, workforce training. So we got that grant, 2 years. We established the program. We've completed it. And I was disappointed. We hired great teachers, English teachers, but I was disappointed. What do you think? Is this interactive? Absolutely. What do you think my disappointment was? Anyway. What was that?
That your employees wasn't participating.
Got it. I mean, again, I thought, wow, what an opportunity. We set up the classes next door here. Bunker Hill was in the program, and they give us facilities to. So the old adage of bringing the horse to the water, but you can't make it drink, played that. So then that worried me, and I started digging in, and it's the reasons mainly was the Latinos have 2 jobs. Immigrants have 2 jobs to be able to survive, right? So they left the store and they went to the second job. That was one reason. The other one is child care, right? So, but anyhow, we went through it, and there was a cadre of individuals that attended, but I haven't given up. We're still looking for English as a second language programs, and I think Bunker Hill has one. There's others in the area. So, because I think English is the foundation. Because I care about my employees. I want them to grow and advance and leave the company. Yeah. If they're cashiers, they're not going to be a cashier their whole life. So they have to grow, and to be able to grow, here's the place: education. That's it. My own experience, 50 years ago, came from Cuba, $5 in my pocket, went to family, and they helped me, and this country opened the arms in terms of education. I went to Northeastern. I worked like the Dickens, in terms of getting my degree, and then I got an opportunity, the land of opportunity. I was going to work when I graduated, and a scholarship from MIT to do a master's degree. Wow. I was scared like the hell. I said, what the heck? So I went there, graduated there, got a job for 35 years, raised a family, married, etc. So that's it. Education for you guys and you're gonna have a lot of stumbles and muros de atravesar y todo eso, pero educación es lo principal. I exceeded my time. Okay, thank you.
You want to rephrase that question for me?
Sure. Can you describe a project or initiative that you are working on right now that addresses a major issue that faces the Latino population in Chelsea?
Okay. So my name is Rich Cuthey. I'm the Executive Director of the Chelsea Chamber of Commerce. Very few people know what the Chelsea Chamber of Commerce does.
I know.
I hope you do, because Alberto is a member and an executive committee member. The Chamber of Commerce is a membership organization that works to support our members, whether they're businesses, whether they're large or small businesses, if they're organizations, community-based organizations. When you walk down Broadway, you're going to see a lot of our members, the Chelsea Collaborative, Bunker Hill Community College, your educational institution here. And so we work to support them, to promote them, to, when they have a problem, they're trying to find somebody who to contact for a particular issue. We try to help them smooth the way. To your question, my answer would be the new partnership that the Chamber has formed with Bunker Hill on the Bridging the Possibilities initiative. Thank you. I hoped you'd say that. So the Chamber's recently started working more closely with Bunker Hill, and I'm now serving on a committee that is working on an initiative called Bridging the Possibilities, and my piece of it is what we're working to do is to create a series of monthly roundtables that focus on one industry and bring people to the table who can tell you about that industry. When I was in high school, I was like, one of the smart kids, and I thought, I know what I want to do. My parents didn't go to college, so there was no one, and their friends didn't go to college. There was no one to explain to me what different jobs and different industries entail. What does it mean to do this job or to work in that industry? They make us take all those tests that find out what you're suited for, and it always comes up with some answer that's not even near correct. But there was never anybody to ask questions of and say, tell me what it is you do. What are the different kinds of jobs in your industry? So that's what we're trying to answer with these series of roundtables. There'll be panelists just like you're seeing here today. And so for any of you who are interested in criminal justice, the first one of these panels is going to be on Thursday, October 29th at 6 p.m. in this room.
Good.
Thank you.
Yes, well, buenos dias. It's still morning. It's not 12 o'clock yet. My name is Luis Prado. I am the director of the Department of Health and Human Services for the City of Chelsea. And before that, and for many years now, I've been involved in community development, economic, social development. I just, first of all, want to give my thanks to the organizers of these events and for this particular activity. I see this as an opportunity to have a conversation with members of the community about issues that might influence and affect the development of their potential and their interest in future activities and careers wherever you go in the city or whatever. In terms of that question of what is an immediate initiative or an initiative I'd like to talk about, I have to say there are so many things going on in the city, so many initiatives, and it's hard for me to choose one because also I don't want to create problems with people that might be involved in other initiatives. But I also agree that educational activities are extremely important. The role of Bunker Hill Community College and the role of agencies that are involved in employment training and ESL, English as a second language, is extremely important. My department consists of programs that serve veterans, seniors, the library, the public library, general public health. We do surveillance of diseases in the city, and we try to intervene before we have a serious epidemic or a serious problem. And we have also recreation, cultural affairs, and a small component on job development. The community schools that is related to recreation, cultural affairs, and also has educational classes, just recently completed a strategic plan. And we are going to be trying to implement that plan because obviously as migrants or immigrants, that is the bulk of the population in the city, there is a population there that has to be served with activities that will help them or us with the development of the skills that are needed to fully participate in society at all different levels. Let me talk a little bit about something that is also in the back of my mind. When I was told that, well, this is part of the celebration of La Hispanidad, I felt inclined to prepare something which I'm not going to really get into, but I wrote some notes and from previous interest in history. That is also something that I will recommend everyone to really get into. The meaning of Hispanidad is something that needs to be constantly for people that have a background coming from countries where the language and the culture was different. It has to be constantly reflected upon, because when we say that we need to develop new skills and develop better language skills and English learning, we are not meaning that we have to forget other languages or the language we come, that has a lot of value. So I wanted to orient my conversation that direction, but maybe when we have questions and answers, we can refer to those issues. In terms of myself, I have to add, and that might explain my accent and also my my history that is very similar in many cases, in many instances to many of the people in the audience. I was born in Puerto Rico and left the island when I was in my 20s. In those days, English was not a language that you had to learn in Puerto Rico. We had two languages, but English was the second language in Puerto Rico. Coming to the United States, English had to become the first language. And it was not too easy because there were not enough opportunities to learn the language. And people were left to their own to do so. Fortunately, we do have programs now, and some of them very low cost, and some of them at different levels, that I encourage, not you, because obviously if you are participating and you are second generation Latinos might be more advanced at that, but encourage your relatives, your friends to participate in those programs. And the aim is not only employment, but it's also participation at all levels. And later on, we can talk about what participation means and what engagement in the things that are needed in any community also means. I don't want to take too much time, and I hope that we have time later on to answer some questions.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Alberto if I can have a part-time job bagging groceries so they could have a Mexicano representing the workforce. My name is Dan Cortez. It used to be at one point Daniel Cortez when I was born in Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico. That's the city that borders El Paso, Texas, if you're familiar with the Southwest. Like the two, at least, unless he's from Bolivia, like the gentleman to my right, I'm an immigrant as well. We came to the United States when I was 4 years old. We had a visa, so it's gonna sound like a familiar story to some of you. We had a visa that we knew we were gonna overstay. I didn't know I was 4 years old. I thought we were going on a long trip. So we packed our station wagon and we drove from Juarez to California at the time, and we stayed there for a few months. My parents worked and raised enough money for us to relocate to Peoria, Arizona, which is just outside of Phoenix. And at the time, it was a long time ago, at a time when you actually didn't speak Spanish in public. That's gonna sound hard to believe, especially for some of you people. And even before my time, if you spoke Spanish at school, you got hit with the ruler. I was just after that time where in public we did not speak Spanish. Now, the good of that, if there's any good of that, is that we were pretty much forced to learn English pretty quickly. That's why I to some of you I may not have an accent, but what was bad about that is that we lost our language. So a lot of second and third generation, at least that I can speak of in the Southwest, Mexican-American kids primarily that don't speak Spanish. And to me, that's a huge problem. So I'm gonna talk just a little bit about my own family timeline because I think it impacts, hopefully, you as some of you might be immigrants or have family members that are. And I echo what's been said so far in terms of education. That's first and foremost. But before I continue, I just wanted to ask a quick question. How many of you in your family are the first to attend, or that are in high school, they're going to be the first to attend college? Okay, how many of you are the second? How about the third? Okay. The goal, my own personal goal, is that for me to ask that question in 20 years before I make my way upstairs, or 30 years maybe, and have that number be, well, I'm the 15th, I'm the 20th. The only way that the only way that us as a Latino community, and really all communities of color, are going to achieve normal levels of success are if we have established education as part of our everyday versus being the first and being the second and being the exception. It's very difficult to be the first. It's very difficult to be the one Latino or kid of color that's going to college because sometimes you get some flack from some of your homies, right? You know, what are you doing? I got to study. Oh, come on, man, come with us. If that ever happens to you, just remember what I'm saying to you. You're going to be on your way to a wonderful path in life if you stick to it. So just quickly about my background. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, which is the center for immigration, for SB 1070, for everything that awful that has started there, because we're right next to the border. So in my work as a community organizer and as a director of a leadership program for Latino professionals and also Latino youth and parents, the one thing that we discovered that was the great equalizer was access to education. So one initiative that I would love to see happen in Chelsea soon is actually a program that does exist in Massachusetts. It's called the American Dream Academy. And what it is, it's an 8-week course for immigrant parents to teach them about the ABCs of the U.S. school system. So how many of you go back home and say, when you were younger anyway, you would go back home and say, Mom, Dad, the school wants me to do this, and they look at you with a blank stare because they don't understand what you're talking about. Okay, so what this program does is it gets them completely versed on what it is to be participating in the U.S. school system. It gets them to talk to the teachers and the counselors, and when they graduate, a lot of them end up volunteering at the schools. That's step number one. Number two is youth empowerment, not just access to education, but youth empowerment, and how young people are going to be the trailblazers within their own family. You know the saying, when people graduate from high school or college and they give their big speeches and they say, we're going to go change the world? That's great. But what Bill Cosby, probably not a great reference about Bill Cosby, but what he said one time that really stuck with me is very Gandhi-like. He said, don't worry about that. He goes, worry about the people that you can touch. Also not a good example, probably, but worry about the people that you can connect with. And I know. It wasn't Bill Cosby, it was somebody else. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that he said, worry about your mom and dad. Worry about your little brothers and sisters. Worry about your little primitos, your little cousins. Worry about the people that you can actually positively influence. And if enough of us did that, then we're gonna be able to do what the guy that gave the valedictorian speech said. Okay, so I'll pause right there because I'm sure there's a lot more things that we're going to talk about during the Q&A.
Hi, my name is Alba Rivas.
I can barely hear you. And I'm next.
Hi, my name is Alba Rivas. Excuse my accent, I have an accent. But okay, so we have a business here next to McDonald's. We bought the business 5 years ago. It's a family business. I come from El Salvador. I came here when I was 20 years old. Sorry. So what I would say about what are some of the needs among the Latino community, I think one of the first one would be the English language. The learning about the culture, work skills, transportation, that would be, for the recent immigrants. And I think for second generation, I believe is more, about childcare, education, that's for the second. So I'm going to give an example. I study here, and I graduated from here, but for me it was very hard because first I didn't know the language, so that was one of the main problems for me, learning the language, and also getting help from the financially, So I know what that's one of the I think one of the main issues here, for Latino that recently come from another country. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I would say.
Could I just clear one thing up with Mr. Cortez? Actually, the only person on this panel who was born on American soil is Luis Prado.
Oh, Luis Prado.
I was born in France.
Oh. I think we were born in Guantanamo.
No, I lived in
You live in
Guantanamo.
Guantanamo.
Well,
That would have been a great trivia question.
we were in the same building, and I didn't know that. So this is evidence of how important it is to have activities like this and for people to come together and share experiences. I don't know what the next.
Well, we'd like to
Step
have an opportunity to open it up to students for some questions. And
That-
maybe
that's the best part.
tying it back to the introductions from the panelists or questions that you have that have come up in your courses or that have come up in your labs that you're interested in. We're open to all possibilities. Just kidding. I believe we have one more panelist joining us who might be locked out of the room. That's not very welcoming. There we go. Good morning, Lada. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Why don't we take a student question? We'll give Gladys a moment to get settled, and then we'll ask you to introduce yourself.
Sure.
Okay. Does somebody have a question they'd like to start off with? Not everybody at once. Yes.
I have a question, but I forgot your name. You
Yes.
up, maybe.
Dan?
You're right in front of me.
Dan.
Can you stand up so we can all hear you?
So my question is, do you have anything in Boston for like parents that, don't speak the language, whatever? 'Cause I talked to my mom, I'm 26, but I still talk to her and she's like looking at me like that. What are you saying? How can is there anything in Boston that she can go to get information?
I personally don't. I'm not familiar with programs in Boston. I'm more familiar with Chelsea. Obviously, we have the community college, but also, but actually, you speak to something really important. How do you get an immigrant parent or a parent who doesn't speak English to come to a big institution like Bunker Hill? That's the real question. How do you pave the road for that? And I'll just share that with an anecdote. My mom, well, obviously I came when I was 4, so she was I think around 30 or so. So she, I know I talked earlier about not speaking Spanish in public. She stayed at home. She either worked in the fields or was a maid or stayed at home. So her English wasn't that great. Fast forward 20 years or so, when she's taking my younger brother to get his GED at a community college, my brother said, no, I'm not going to do this. But a lady there said, Senora, you already paid for the class. Why don't you sign up for this ESL class? And to her, it was like, no, I got to hurry up and get out of here, because it was a big institution to her. The lady bugged her, called her at home, and she took one class. She ended up graduating from the ELL program, and she ended up graduating with her AA, and she ended up graduating from Arizona State University, where she's a teacher, and she's 71. But the key there is, if it wasn't for that lady who we referred to as our angel, that would still be a big institution. So the question is, how do we get that parent to become comfortable with a large institution? And that's what Gladys does. That's what everybody here does. And and I'd love to work in greater partnership in doing that. And one of the best ways is that program that I described earlier.
Can I, in terms of places in Boston, one place that could be a good start is called Villa Victoria, IBA. And they usually have programs, ESL and other activities. Or they can refer you to other places.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is so hard for me to. I've gotten her flyers. I've told her, Mom, do it, and I've tried to talk to her over and over and over, but she just keeps thinking, yeah, like, it's too hard. I'm already 43, and I'm not gonna be able to do it. And she's really not that old.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
but for 20 years, I did the same thing. For 20 years, I did the same thing. My mom said no. So it was the same thing.
It's so hard. I've done everything. I've worked for the Alianza Hispana in Dorchester.
Okay.
They give classes there. It's just like, I don't know what to do. So she can finally like do something, you know.
let me add to that. There is number of agencies in Boston. The problem is that that number is shrinking, is reduced now. And part of it is because people need to engage those institutions and support them and explain what you are saying, tell them directly, so they will pay attention to what you're saying.
I just want to mention very quickly, there's an organization which actually I ran across when I was looking for this contract from the state. It's called English for New Bostonians. And what they do is that's their job, and is to teach English to immigrants. They do not teach English, but they do give grants to institutions to do that. So I can put you in contact with them. And maybe there's a smaller institution, or like for instance, Mujeres Unidas en Acción, which is in Dorchester, is the one that taught our classes. So there's hundreds, or not, I don't know if hundreds, but dozens of groups out there teaching English. So maybe you'll find a place which is comfortable, because it has to be comfortable.
Gladys, we had a good segue to your work earlier. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your work?
Sure. So I apologize for being late. We had an opportunity to fundraise for $50,000 for youth employment, and my grant writer and my financial director had me capture in my office to make sure that I approved whatever they were writing so that I can be here. But one of the things that I want to say is, so I grew up in the city of Chelsea. My parents are both were both Puerto Ricans. They both passed. I grew up in a city of a lot of challenges, but I made it. Both of my parents were alcoholics. And I always like to tell my story, because that's the reality of many females of color, many young people of color, and many young people in general in the city of Chelsea. But I never let those things sort of like bother me at all. If anything, those were my strength in order for me to continue going and to raise my kids and to go to school and to do what I do in our community. So the Chelsea Collaborative does workers' rights. During the summer, we employ approximately 250 to 300 youth every year with the city of Chelsea. We place those youth in different internships. Bunker Hill, a long time ago, used to take our youth and they don't pay, nobody pays salary. We pay their salary, and the youth does an internship here or anywhere around the city. It could be the court, the police department, and then the supervisors are become mentors and friends in the community. So whenever that young person is in need of an advice, a mentorship, a friend to talk to, they always reach out to those individuals. During the summer, they spend 6 to 8 weeks during the summer working for them. But there's more about, for us, it's more important for us to pay their salary and for the young person to engage with a professional that is able to help them and become their friend. That's all we care about. And then we do workers' rights. We do a lot of immigration work. We have a legal department. We do citizenship. We are sometimes not the most popular kids in the block, because when it comes to workers' rights, we have to confront individuals that are not paying salaries. So, for example, in the city of Chelsea, there was a company that was paying $4.61 to 14 workers. We found out about it, we sent them a letter, he ignored the letters, and then we took him to the United States Labor Department, and some of them were afraid because they were not documented. Half of them were legal residents, 2 of them citizens, and the other ones were undocumented. They were afraid, but they spoke up, we helped them, and we ended up settling for those 14 workers for $925,000 that they were paid. Yes, the company, when the Labor Department came, the company hid him and kept him in a closet for 3 hours. And this is Little Chelsea. So what I would ask for Bunker Hill Community College, like they were very, very involved in the past. And just for the past history, I was very instrumental in making sure that this college came to Broadway, to Hathaway Street. I worked with the former deans, the school administrators to advocate that the post office building, which this used to be a post office building, turned to be this incredible location that we all are benefiting from. So if you go around, you will see pictures of me downstairs when we were sort of like organizing and advocating for this location. And what I would say is that what I would need for Bunker Hill College, again, is to give me some of your students as interns. We have had great experience with some of the interns. Danny Mojica came to be so involved in community organizing, and now he's the director of community schools program through a Bunker Hill community placement that we had at the Chelsea Collaborative. And this is a young man who grew up in the city, who never thought about doing this type of work that we all do, and now he runs the community schools programs. So I would love for community, for Bunker Hill to do that with the students. I would also will challenge each of you as young people to get involved in your community, whether it's Chelsea, Malden, wherever you are. Every young person that is in a community college should be reaching out to a 14-year-old who has no idea what they want to do when they grow up. So I think it's our responsibility as students to make sure that we create a path for the younger ones to follow our leadership and to follow our path, okay? And then I would say that in Bunker Hill Community College, in the classes, one thing that we did, and I never forget Lucia Colon, who's a school committee member who also worked at the Chelsea Collaborative. She used to come to Bunker Hill Community College at least 3 times a week to talk about citizenship classes, about workers' rights, about anything that some of the students may need. And because they're in a classroom setting, they come here, take the classes, and they go, and they may have all these challenges, as you very well know that we all have, whether it's in our house, whether it's in our school work, and we were able to sort of like recruit people and identify campaigns or injustice that people were going through. And Bunker Hill was like an incredible recruiting group for us in terms of helping promote the programs and promote the good work that Chelsea does. It's not only the Chelsea Collaborative. We have great organizations in the city of Chelsea. So as young people, if you have any little time, 2 hours, 3 hours, please find yourself a resource directory for nonprofit organizations in Chelsea and volunteer your time. It looks amazing in your resume, but also you're gaining experience and you're transforming lives. So my challenge to you today is that although I came late, I love to work with young people, and I would urge you to please, as students from Bunker Hill Community College, make your school look good, but make a path for other young people to follow your lead. Gracias.
if your parents aren't already connected with the Chelsea Collaborative's Family Services Division, please do that, because they do a lot of great work in empowering parents to be involved in their children's education, so please do that. And I just want to add one more thing to that, echoing what Gladys just said, is that don't wait for something to come to you. Don't wait for a program to exist so you can actually make a change in someone's life. I was just reminded of this last night. There was granted it has to do with my college. I went to Arizona State, and we have a great football team. But anyway, what this teacher did in California, there's another state, she had this idea that she would connect these little first graders to a college. So it just so happened that her son she had no connection to ASU other than that her son was a freshman. And she could call him up and say, hey, can you guys send us some pom-poms or just little fun things for the kids? No one anticipated what would happen next. What happened is that all these little kids, these first graders in this very challenged school, who all their older siblings are dropping out or not going to college. So what happened is that they started a pen pal program with each other. And so all these kids from this particular dorm at Arizona State University, the biggest school in the country, with these first graders, created this wonderful relationship where the kids actually go to sleep with their letters. And they're making commitments about what kind of college they want to go to. So they have a mindset as a first grader that it was exciting to them, not because somebody like any of us told them you should have a mindset. So what are the really neat connection points that we can do as young people, that you can do as young people, that are going to spark an interest in a young person that hasn't had a chance to develop their own path. So I'm going to continue the challenge with Gladys. Please be involved. And if anybody wants to seek either one of us, I think they're going to get our contact information.
Sure,
Yeah,
yep.
perfect. Thank you.
Did you have a question? I saw your hand up before. Please.
Should I stand?
Sure, yeah.
Is it Gladys? Yes. Okay. First of all, you came late, but you came with such a fire that I love.
You described it perfectly.
Her trials and tribulations is what fueled her for success, so I wanted to commend you on that. And then I wanted to ask you a question about the internship. Sure. Do you have to be a resident of Chelsea?
Of course not, no. And you don't have to speak Spanish either, so that's not a requirement at all. Okay? You're welcome.
Let me add something. The services in agencies or by the city are for the entire population of the city. And what is important also to know is that different groups within the city have different needs. And that's part of what we are trying to do. In terms of age or ethnicity or language, we need to respond, to find a way of connecting. And that's why different agencies and services do. Once again, there is a directory of activities and services in the city that is in the web page. It's called Chelsea Family Resources. It's a web page of this, in the web page of the city. So that is also available, and I feel that might be important also maybe to work a way of distributing them in different places like here at Bunker Hill and other places in the city.
I want to bring this back to the issues, especially about the Latinos having 2 jobs, because I find that to be a main concern in terms of education and support for our students. And so I'm going to throw the ball right back at you guys as the community leaders here in Chelsea. What can you do as leaders to help parents who have 2 jobs right now, who can't come to parent meetings, who can't come to any of these, who are seeing their children only during the weekends? What can you do as community leaders? Because we from our end, we're trying to do something, but it's not working. So you guys, I work for Bunker Hill, but I'm stationed at Chelsea High School. And it's an issue at all levels. Yeah. At all levels. So I just want to throw it at you guys as community leaders. What can we do with parents to help them alleviate?
Yeah, so the Chelsea Collaborative, that was one of the issues that we had. And we have 2 groups that we created, and it's just like sort of like a drop-in center. They go there three days a week, and the Somali Bantu girls group, they go there on Saturdays. And the idea is that we literally had, all these young people with no sort of like support system right after school. So if they don't come to the Chelsea Collaborative, they'll go home, there's nobody there or whatever, and who knows, they'll stay with their friends in the streets or whatever. So we created with the with the Environmental Justice Youth Group that we have at the Collaborative, a group where other young people can literally drop by 3 times a week, and then they'll work on their homework, and then they'll work on an environmental project based at the Collaborative. So for example, last year, we recruited approximately 22 other young people with the 7 youth leaders. They were in charge of planting up to 2,000 trees with the city of Chelsea. And the idea is that they did hands-on things while they were learning about planting. They were also getting staff support from other peers doing their homework. Because if not, young people don't have that structure at home. When they get home, there's an empty home sometimes. Or they have the responsibility of taking care of their siblings, because that's real. And I'm sorry, you put in it extremely nice. I know a lot of our members at the Chelsea Collaborative, they have 3 jobs, not even 2. So, at times they don't even see their kids until like the weekend for a couple of hours until they go back to work. So it's a real problem. The only way that we address that problem, so for example, the Somali Bantu girls group, it was a group that we created at the Chelsea Collaborative because we wanted to expose. So many of the young girls are given all the responsibility of the home, taking care of all their siblings, their house duties, etc. And we felt that they didn't know enough about colleges and higher education in order for them to think about that in the near future. And they were graduating from high school without thinking about college, or thinking about college when it was not too late, because it's never late for education, but when they didn't have all the resources offered, like your services at the school. So we began this drop-in group on Saturdays, and we have 20 young Somali Bantu girls. They have done everything. We have taken them to Emerson College. They've been exposed to sort of like higher education, but they also been exposed to, they were in the Boston Globe recently. I think it was back in the summer, and they were cooking at Davio's. So we got Davio's chef to to open their kitchen for them, and they taught them how to cook Somali Bantu food. And then the Davio's restaurant did the same for them. So it was an incredible, and that was because some of the girls identify themselves as cooks. So we say, why not take them to a fancy restaurant so they can see themselves in that chef suit and doing the cooking. So that's what we did. So those are the 2 things that we do for type of alternative support system that is not so much direct, because as you know, with young people, if you force them or if you talk too much about doing them, I know what I want to do with my life. I know everything, and I have a 19-year-old. He knows everything. But I think that's how we handle that. An informal drop-in center that they can sort of like get connected with some of our youth groups.
Regarding the question, regarding the parent participation, there are lots of communities that have the same situation. There are a lot of creative ideas that school districts have taken. Gladys is touching on a lot of them regarding the kids, but also like coming to the parents. How are you going to actually come to the parents? Are you going to do a Saturday thing, or is that just off the table? You know what I mean? The system has to be willing to meet the parents where they are. But there's also the elephant in the room. A lot of these parents, quite frankly, not because there's not a desire to support the kid by participating in the conferences or whatever it is you're trying to get in and participate in. A lot of them, because they don't understand the system, it's an excuse. I have 2 jobs, I can't go. It's an excuse. You're putting somebody in a very frightening situation. And I know that because when I facilitated 8 of these classes, once you remove that, they find a way with 3 jobs to meet with the counselors. They find the way because they feel included and invited. That's the key thing. You can put all sorts of systems in place, but once you remove that barrier, you're gonna have some that work and some that don't. The last thing is you can do some quick things now, or you can say, you know what, why don't we develop that system in place? Why don't we do the work with a collaborative or whoever and say, why don't we do this parent engagement program that teaches them just the basics? Because in Latin American countries, and maybe other countries, the parents deliver the children to the school. Maestro, maestra, do what you will. I am not going to bother you. What this program does is it teaches them to become squeaky wheels. You know, why is it in South Phoenix, this resources are small, but in Scottsdale, they're huge? Well, the tax base is one, but the other is that the parents speak up. And so we got to get our parents to speak up too.
Was there a question? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Gabriel Camacho. I'm a volunteer at the Chelsea Collaborative. And I want to supplement Gladys's answer to this gentleman's question about what about the parent that has 1, 2, 3 different jobs. Well, it's a matter of economic justice. When employers don't even pay minimum wage or overtime, that's when parents have to have 2 or 3 jobs. So one thing is to attack employers that engage in wage theft. Number 2, Chelsea Collaborative was part of a campaign to raise the minimum wage to $10. Right now, they're engaged in the campaign to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, which is $15 an hour. And the other thing that the Chelsea Collaborative does is help workers unionize, so then they can have further benefits through collective bargaining. So basically, that question about 2, 3 jobs is a matter of economic justice.
Very true. Thank you, Gabriel.
Please, yes.
Being from the other side, from the business side, a small business. We abide with the law, and we've increased our employees to minimum wage. However, a perspective, and I know there's a lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but there's companies out there that take advantage of the immigrants. And I know that because the immigrants here, our employees are immigrants. And they're submissive because they're afraid to step out because, you know, the, what do you call that? The ISIS or whatever they're.
Their immigration status.
Yeah, the immigration status, right. So they are caught in that vice. And we are very, very aware of that. However, we have to run a business. Everybody has to run a business. I don't know how many are studying business here, but businesses have to survive in terms of you know, operating costs. You have to manage that. You have competition. All of that goes into the. So simply to say that businesses have to take on that burden of, I wish I could, you know, give $15 an hour to all of our employees. That's fine. However, if Market Basket, which is that little store here nearby, doesn't offer that, then they have a low cost structure. They can offer lower prices, and our sales will go down. So it's that balance that businesses have to play. What we do at Compare, you know, our employees are family, and we treat them as that. And every time that we can grow that family, we'll grow it because in business, employees are the ones that make the success of the company. So I just want to balance that statement in saying that there has to be some balance between business needs and costs, et cetera. Just a comment.
I just want to address Alberto. So Alberto, the 5 for 15 is for companies or franchises that have over 200 employees. So if you don't have 200 employees, you should not worry about it. Market Basket should worry about it.
Right.
Okay?
Well, but just a minute. I don't have 200 now, but I want to have 200.
Okay, then we'll deal with it when we get there. Then you can afford it.
Because, hey, we're Stop and Compare, and we have Stop and Shop, and this is the land of opportunity. And let me say something.
Oh, he's fired up.
Oh, I'm fired
Here
up.
we
Fired
go.
up. I'm fired up.
That's awesome.
This land is a land of immigrants, okay? And if you watch, everybody wants to come to this country, not leave it. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
And there's one political candidate, I don't want to say names here, that wants to build a wall in Mexico, you know, and stop that. But that's what this country's about, is hard work. And that gentleman that said 2 or 3 jobs, hey, I worked 2 or 3 jobs when I came here, but you have to have ganas. You know what ganas mean? Desire. And if you work 2 jobs and you have to go to school at night, you go to school at night. Because the individual is that has made this country great. And you have to rely on that individual to go up in the economic ladder. I know there's a lot of talk about the income gap, and there is an income gap, and in the political debate that we're having now, it addresses that, and it bothers me too. But it's the individual that makes this country great, and the entrepreneurship and the capitalism. Sorry.
So it seems like this is the time to provide counterpoints. I disagree with, respectfully disagree with that people want to come to this country to stay in this country. They want to come to this country for an opportunity to work, and then to potentially return back to their country and possibly be seasonal workers. If you study at all immigration patterns, especially in the Southwest, you'll understand that people are migrant workers. They come and they work and pick apples in Washington, they pick lettuce in Yuma, Arizona, and they go back to Mexico or whatever country they were from. And then they come back and they're seasonal workers. When we tighten the border, we trap those people here. So now when somebody comes to work, they're forced to stay here. Some of them want to stay here, but we are forcing, our immigration policy is actually forcing people to stay here because it's too dangerous to go back home. So just keep that in mind when the larger discussion of immigration, because you're all going to be a part of it. People aren't coming necessarily to become American citizens or become Americans. They're coming for an opportunity. If the economy got any worse than it did, and Canada had all these jobs, and you had a cousin up there that was saying, "Hey, Primo, you got a job up here at $20. You just got to speak." We're in the French part of Canada. You got to speak French, brother. This Toby Keith-loving American would go to this French province and say, "Screw you! I'm going to blast my Toby Keith and I'm going to wave my American flag." It's not any different with Latin Americans coming here and doing the same exact thing. Nobody wants to become a Canadian. Just like those people may or may not want to become American. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I was just curious, could we see by a show of hands, because we're having this discussion, how many people here are foreign born?
Born in another country.
Okay. All right.
I have a question. First of all, I have to say thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing with us. But as part of Buckhead Community College, my question to you, someone that wants to help with Chelsea, what would be the most effective way to network what Chelsea has to offer for its citizens? It seems to me that there are agencies, there are offices, there are programs, there are initiatives, but they don't communicate with each other. What would be your suggestion on creating that communication and distributing that information efficiently so the citizens can benefit from it?
I think I'd like to attack that, or at least
I was hoping that you
weigh
would.
in. You've just described one of the biggest challenges in Chelsea, and it stems from one of the strengths of Chelsea, which is that we're really good at collaborating. In 2014, last year, when Chelsea won the All-America City Award for the second time, when they won the Working Cities Challenge grant from the Federal Reserve, the edge they had on the other applicants was the fact that I know Gladys, I know Louise, I know Dan. You know, it's a small town, people know each other, and they collaborate. But when you have that many initiatives and people who want to do good things, it gets messy because I'm not always talking to you, and Luis and Dan have been talking, but I'm out of the loop, and I didn't know you guys were working on that. So it's a difficult challenge. I don't exactly know the answer. Even coming up with a central calendar for the city. So I know MGH is, our ChelseaMA.org is trying to do something along those lines, and I'm setting up a meeting for next week to exactly address this kind of thing. So when we have a good suggestion, we'll let you know.
Well, I do have a good suggestion.
Tell us, Luis.
Get involved.
Well, no, I think the first thing is to recognize that we have many programs in the city, but that we need to develop some type of systematic way of collaborating and developing sort of a continuum of opportunities. And that can be done. And I think everybody will agree that that can be done. And the difficult part of this is how to structure it in a way that it can be long-lasting and that it can be accountable to each other. And that might sound a little bit of an abstraction, but it's the only way it can happen. You know, when people start trusting that what we are doing has very specific goals, and when the population engages in supporting and strengthening those activities. Concretely, in the past, we did have some collaboration with Bunker Hill. We were working on something that we call sort of a pipeline of opportunities where people at different moments in their lives could engage in that system, and they could learn and go through different experiences, and at the moment that something didn't work, they could go back and start all over again, sort of, and move faster. Usually the second time is easier for people to learn computer skills or languages or whatever. And there was a formal component that is related to Bunker Hill Community College. And then there was an informal component that was more at the level of different agency services. The other thing that was mentioned by Gladys also, she called the attention, is that we should be working on some type of career ladder for the population of Chelsea or for the population that comes to the city for different services. And that can be also done. We have experience on these things in the past. We work on this in Boston. I worked on this in Puerto Rico years ago, so that's an advantage of having some experience, let's say. And it can be done. I think the first step is something like this, where people come together and talk, and then I hope a lot of people engage in moving forward with the idea.
I just have to.
Go ahead.
I just have to add that so there's a lot of collaborations, whether it's through neighborhood developers, you know, when they have a neighborhood initiative, you know, we all have a lot of things that we all part of. And you have to understand that sometimes those meetings, you have a nice, you know, group of people participating, and then an emergency happens in the city that we have to address, or the city has to address, and it basically diminishes a little bit the participation. But I have to, in taking the chance of being kicked out of this college that I'm sitting in your property, I have to be extremely honest with everyone here, especially with the administrators of Bunker Hill. Before, Bunker Hill was a community college. Now, Bunker Hill has become an institution. So I really think that Bunker Hill's, if people know me, they know that I'm extremely honest. So I think that Bunker Hill needs to go back to doing their career fairs that they used to do. They used to do parties in the parking lot. You guys used to take all your cars out, right? I'm not making it up. But you guys became like a boring college. I'm so sorry. But, you know, I think that we need, in order for us to be part of the community, we need to do much more to get people engaged and to let people know that we are here and this is our community college, and that, you know, residents should be involved in this institution that we all created and we have part, you know, to do with this. So I really think that I would say for the older staff that have been here the longest, man, you guys were great. Now you guys are good in terms of students and in terms of careers, but I think that in terms of your sense of community college, you kind of lost that and you need to regain it. And we are here to help and do whatever it takes so that you guys are integrated back in the community life of our city, because it's extremely rich and you're missing a good time, okay? Gracias.
Preaching, guys, preaching. You know,
One more comment, and then I know many of the students are trying to catch the shuttle that's heading back, so please one more
just
comment.
actually, it's actually part of what the initiative that would hopefully answer this question. But what Gladys is saying is really important, because nonprofit organizations are founded because the founder and the founding board were passionate about an issue. And then all of a sudden they grow, they become successful, they get a grant for this, they get a grant for that, and then they start to lose their focus. So what happens is that you create a siloism effect among community-based organizations within communities. What Chelsea's good at, it's good at working collaboratively, but we also need to be aware that there's a group called The Hub that just started meeting. It's no talking, it's action. So what we do is we meet for 90 minutes on Thursdays, and what we do is we introduce cases of people that are at risk. Anybody can bring a case to this group. Every representative from every service organization is there, the police department, DCF, schools, everybody. So then what happens is that we quickly go through why they're at risk, and then we have an offline strategy discussion because of privacy issues, and within 48 hours there's a door knock. So what has happened is that we've gotten people the help that they need, but it started to bust silos. I had never met anybody from DCF, and all of a sudden these people are eating lunch together. So there's these things that the community leaders need to participate to get to know each other better, and then that infiltrates the rest of the community. The city manager went to a couple of these meetings and says, we need to have this, instead of having all these coalitions and all this stuff, we need to be action oriented. We need to be a little bit more like the collaborative and address an issue, figure out who's at the table, and then get it done.
So thank you very much for our panelists today who have given us a lot to think about and have done an excellent job helping us to close our month of activities in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. And it's wonderful to see all of the students here, and it's wonderful that I recognize a lot of you and that you've been in this room every week over the last month as we've celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month through all of our activities. So thank you very much for your participation, and we look forward to seeing you next year for more events. One final thought, please.
Go vote!
Yeah, that's really the answer.
Right? What was it?
By the way, debes comunicarte con Luis porque